Hey everybody, welcome back. HSC Podcast 141. Big Buck Steve on the mic. Got Big Smooth and Fresh Wes. Here we go. Finishing up the NFL season, wrapping up Super Bowl. We'll talk a little bit about the NFL season, and then we can get into another top five. Let's just get right into it. Like Super Bowl, we all wanted Philly, predicted Philly, but did you think that they would win like they did?
Well, we kind of said that's the only way were going to win was if they beat him up early and took a big lead.
Right. Well, and it was ugly early. 24 nothing, right?
Yeah. KC ran the ball, only 6 times? Wasn't it something crazy like that?
They didn't run a lot, no. So I guess the question is like if you're Kansas City and you look back at that game, like what did Kansas City do wrong? Like what was Kansas City's mistakes?
Showed up. I don't
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean,
they should have done more, I hate to say it, out of the Luke Getsy playbook and done more short passes and stuff to get rid of the ball because Mahomes was under fire the whole game. He can't be dropping back to 5 yard, you know what I mean? Five up because
yeah,
he was
when they're putting pressure on them, like you have to get rid of the ball quick, get it out of your hands, or run the ball. Which you just said, they didn't run the ball a lot. But yeah, but do they have the running backs, to do those short passes? I guess you got Kelsey, some good tight ends where you can do some of those short passes, but Kareem Hunt, Pacheco, they're not the best receiving backs in the world.
don't they got P Ryan too?
Yeah, he's their third down back.
Yeah, P Ryan could do it. They don't have like Jarrett McKinnon anymore, right? So they don't have the. But even just putting Worthy out in space, right?
Right.
You have Worthy, you have Hollywood Brown. Just run bubble screens to them or something.
So what did you overall? So Philly pretty much dominated the game. There was a lot of a late scoring, in yards from Kansas City, but up to that point, they hadn't done much.
Wasn't it like 26 yards in the first half?
Right.
Oh yeah, they had no. Philadelphia had more points than the Chiefs had yards. The Eagles had 24 points. The Chiefs had 23 yards.
Ugh.
They had
Man,
one
that's
first
brutal.
down.
Overall, when you look at it, the Philadelphia just looked like the better team, both sides of the ball. And Hurts played well. He ran the ball when he needed to, also. And then, so the big thing that I've seen a lot is talking about Saquon. And a lot of people said Saquon, he didn't have the greatest game. But when you look at it, like he carried the ball 25 times. He didn't have a bunch of yardage, but he caught the ball, 6 times for another 40 yards. And so Kansas City, their idea was to stop Saquon.
Well, and he did. He had a huge impact on the game because of that.
Right.
He concentrated all of it on Saquon. I mean, the game was kind of already over, but when they finally did the play action to Devontae Smith, it was a
Right.
perfect play because all they were doing was still selling out on Saquon.
Nah, They they were the thing was is and of course in the first quarter I'm just like, what are you guys doing? Like come out throwing the ball. They can't stop you. Look at the offensive pass interference ridiculous call that was. The separation they were getting, their guys were open. Goddard was open on that one play. It's like they were selling out against Saquon, but what they did is they kept giving him the ball. Hey, here you go. We're gonna play you guys. We're gonna give you a chance to change your defense.
Yeah.
But if you're not going to do it, we're going to throw all over you. And that's what they did. So they had to keep feeding them the ball to keep them, okay, look, we're stopping them. Yeah, they're running on first down. It's like, look, we got them here. And it's like, no, you can't stop our passing game to a certain extent. They made enough plays in the passing game to get chunk yardage and, set them up for scoring opportunities.
Remember at the beginning of the year when the Eagles got Dotson and we're like, oh, that's such a good pickup. And then he just disappeared all season.
Right.
And then you're like, oh, Super Bowl.
Yeah. And that one when they blitzed, I think they're inside the 35, and you saw the blitz coming. You're like, oh man, they got him. And Saquon picked it up,
Yeah.
and it gave him enough time to find Dotson, and that just kind of started the whole scoring spree.
Yeah, and I don't like, a lot of the talking heads, but one of the things that, I heard in watching some of these, after Super Bowl recaps was Saquon did so many things outside of just rushing the ball, right? So yeah, he didn't have 100 yards, but he caught the ball 6 times for 40 some yards. He picked up a lot of blitzes. And so overall, when you look at it, like he had a great game.
It
But
doesn't always have to be 100. You can do other things and to help win.
Right.
And that's what he did. And that's the thing with Saquon, even when he was at the Giants, it was like he does so many things well. He was just hurt a lot.
Yeah. Then he kind of just didn't want to play for them. I
I
mean,
don't
come
know if
on.
they would have paid him, he would have stayed.
Yeah. So talking about paying running backs, the Bills running back. So Cook, like, is he good enough that you need to pay him to keep him? Like, is he a guy that, because he's going to be in that same situation.
Well, he wants 14 million a year.
Do running backs get that money or do they deserve that money, right?
It's hard because think about the Bills' offense. What do
Well,
they have besides Allen and Cook, right?
like not a lot, not a lot. They've got, a couple
And
receivers,
Shakir's okay. Cooper's kind of past his prime, and Coleman hasn't really, he's a rookie, so give him a pass.
right.
But is he worth 14 million? Or you have Davis also, and Davis seemed to play pretty well too.
I mean, I guess when you look at it, is the age of, it's just not a running back league anymore. And they're almost like interchangeable where you're not going to have too many Saquon seasons or Derrick Henry seasons anymore from your running backs.
Well, and the draft running backs, there's tons. Like let me look here. We're talking probably at least 15 good running backs can be drafted.
Right. Because then you get him coming in on a rookie contract.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah,
now
right
you get him
now,
for 4 years at minimum at a low salary.
Damian Martinez is the 15th ranked running back right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. And he's pretty solid.
ATN is the 25th ranked running back.
What about so back to Super Bowl for a second? How'd you guys feel about the commercials? So everybody loves Super Bowl commercials. What did this year look like?
Every year, like the last few years, it's been kind of like eh. And then when watching them, the only one that I liked was the Instacart one where it had all the nostalgia commercials in it, like the Kool-Aid Man and stuff.
Right.
But none of them were that great. And then I rewatched the Super Bowl the other day and I was watching through the commercials because, when we're at your house partying, watching, it's not like you can hear everything all the time. So I was
Right,
like,
right, right.
So I was rewatching it and I'm like, okay, these are okay.
It's a lot of money, to get airtime during the Super Bowl. And
Yeah,
you
and
would
some of them
think
were
that
just
they're really
really
like working
stupid.
hard to like make the best possible commercial they can.
I know Wes's favorite is the Mountain Dew commercial.
Which one's that?
Seal.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, that's my favorite. Yeah. Talk about weird. That's just a weird commercial.
At least it was something, you know what I mean?
It
Some of
was.
them were
It
like,
was something, all right. It
What's
was
up?
Seal, who's actually a seal. Yeah. I don't know. I couldn't. Every year, it's the same to me. It's just the same commercials. Some of them are okay, and most of them are not.
I mean, you always get the Clydesdales, which is always a good one, right? With Budweiser.
Oh yeah, you gotta love that.
But, it's like, bring back the Bud Bowl. Why is the Bud Bowl gone? You still have Budweiser, you still have Bud Light.
It's probably offensive.
that
There's something about it like, no, we can't do that. That's
that
just
was really good though. I mean, remember growing up and watching the Bud Bowl commercials and the during the Super Bowl, like that was
Rooting
really
for which team would win.
good.
it's like, and then we try to guess the score.
Right.
I mean, you could put even a wrinkle in it, where in
I
the
mean, okay,
playoffs, you could have
everybody,
like Bud Light Lime and, something else.
this
Like,
was pre-smartphone internet days. I mean, this was our entertainment. That's like the Bud Bowl.
I guess another big topic, and I've seen this a lot on social media, the halftime show. I wasn't super impressed with the halftime show, and I get it. Like, Kendrick Lamar, he's fine. It's great. He's an entertainer. I just don't. It wasn't as exciting or as fun to watch as a lot of the Super Bowl halftimes that we've seen. And when you're out there like trying to send messages, instead of just out there performing, it kind of takes away a little bit from like the overall show.
yeah,
You're
that's
really
like, it was all right. It wasn't the best, it wasn't the worst. I was like, oh, okay, I get it. But it wasn't like I was like, oh, sweet. I have been like lately listening to more Kendrick Lamar songs just so because when you're watching it, like I said about the commercials, I have one ear that's not as good as like I can't understand anything he's saying a lot.
right.
So I must, I'm like, oh, okay, I get these songs now. But it wasn't much of anything. It's like you didn't bring out, and that's the thing, is like, dude, Ice Cube, or I mean, Dre, what did Dre do? He brought out all his people.
Right.
And all we get for Kendrick Lamar is two of Drake's exes. That's it.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like you're out. He's almost fighting a battle, in his halftime show against Drake. You're like, is that really what you're here for?
No, and Drake's Canadian. He doesn't care about the Super Bowl.
I did like that, he brought in a bunch of people to be a part of the show and call them underprivileged people, whatever you want to call them from the neighborhood or whatever. That was cool.
Well, he did come out with the American flag, so my whole thing was it was a message to Trump. Make the Super Bowl great again.
Make the Super Bowl great again. Well, what about Samuel L. Jackson though in the Uncle
That
Sam
was pretty
outfit?
cool. That yeah. That it totally would remind me of Django. It's like totally Django.
Yeah, still. I mean, it was okay to watch, and I'm not super disappointed in it, but it wasn't my favorite halftime show.
It's all
The-
about the game,
yeah,
guys. All about the game. And that was a very enjoyable game for me to watch.
I mean, we gotta as a collective, we're kind of happy that Kansas City lost, right?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's hard because you can't go against the Chiefs, even though like the eye test showed that the Chiefs weren't that good this year.
Yeah.
But they kept winning, which that's what you do. You win game. If you win games, you win games. But what they only scored 30 points once all year. They eked out a lot of close games.
The
And
okay, our favorite moment. Mine has got to be the intercept, the pick six, because we were talking about it at the beginning of the game, like
Right.
with prop bets, and I was like, "Come on, a pick six? He's actually gonna throw a pick," and he threw it, and you're just like, "Is he gonna get there? Is he gonna get?" That was on the dude's birthday.
I said it
On
was going to
Cooper
be
DeJean's
Cooper
birthday.
DeJean.
That's a good prop bet. Like, should have taken that.
Oh,
I know. I looked for it. I didn't, I couldn't find it. For me, my favorite was the Devontae Smith touchdown
that was
because that is when it was just like it's done.
Yeah,
it's a
it's
wrap.
over.
It's-
Yeah, my favorite moment I think was when they kind of showed Mahomes getting sacked, and there's like two or three people on top of him, and he's just like under a pile, head back, like just, and you're just like, that's my favorite moment, just to see it's like, okay, Chiefs, like you're not the greatest.
Well, it's just it got nauseating, not just for the last week or two about, three-peat. Everything was three-peat. They're going for the three-peat. I mean, they said that 6 months ago. The Chiefs are going for the three-peat. It's like, stop.
Pat Riley has
You get,
allowed
you
them to
get
use
penalized.
repeat.
Yeah. Pat Riley should have been collecting, like, you know what? Every time you say it, I want $100.
You know what was funny is when so Tom Brady, there he's talking to him and they say something, he's like, Tom Brady goes, well, in my first 9 Super Bowls, I never scored touchdown in the first quarter. But it's like it's hilarious because it's like,
Yeah.
dude, you just like throw in like my first 9 Super
Yeah.
Bowls.
Right. All his Patriots Super Bowls, he never scored in the first quarter.
Right. That's hilarious though. You got
Well,
Tom
that was
Brady announcing.
the other thing that was ridiculous is like, yeah, they're like, if Patrick Mahomes wins the Super Bowl, he's already the GOAT. And I'm like, no, dude.
Uh, yeah.
Not versus the guy that's been to 10 Super Bowls. Although, I mean, argument for sake, like if as many as he's won and had they three-peated, you have to start considering him.
Well, right. Since he's been a starter, haven't they at least made the conference finals every year?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, he's been in the league 7 years. He's been to five Super
Right. That's crazy.
That's
And
crazy.
and you could sit there, I could sit there because I've said it before, I call it the limited contact era. You have the classic era, the 72 Dolphins. You get the 80s and 90s, that's the modern era. Then you got the new age era, which is the Patriots. And then you get to the Chiefs era, and it's the limited contact era. It's just a fact. It is not the same type of game that we grew up with. But still,
Although Mahomes was getting hit.
you got to respect though the his ability to do what he does when it comes to improvising. And Andy Reid, how he drew up and got him comfortable in that offense at a very young age when he wasn't he admitted it. He struggled at reading defenses in college. So to go from that to this, that's amazing. But to sit here and say that he's the GOAT after 7 years, that's premature.
Right. Right.
I'm not saying
Yeah.
that he does, maybe he will be, but I still think when you lose two Super Bowls by a combined total of 40 points, and I'll tell you that was garbage time they scored 22. They're down 40-6. Game's over. It's a wrap.
Right.
34-0, it was a wrap. We were sitting there thinking, hey, and I think it was Josh, he said, has there ever been a shutout in the Super Bowl? I go, nope. It would be the first ones to get shut out in the Super Bowl.
And all their points, yeah, came late and made
Yeah.
it closer than it actually was. But in general, looking at the Super Bowl this year, it wasn't the most fun game to watch unless you're rooting against Kansas City. But yeah, but it was nice, like to see Philly come out, dominate the game, and now you have a clear Super Bowl winner. There wasn't the any referee calls that we were going to go back and people are going to talk about like they won because of this, they won because of that, right?
Yeah.
Started out that way.
I mean, it's a clear winner though, right? It was very clear, and Philly wrapped it up. So all in all, happy with the Super Bowl. I think it went great.
But remember, they're only the sixth team in Super Bowl history that did not blitz in the game, and they still got to him six times. And it's not just the six times they sacked him; they caused havoc for him. I
Right.
mean, he was running around for his life when he didn't get sacked. And what's amazing to me is I don't know if you guys saw the replay when Mahomes is running and Travis Kelce is
Just standing there. Dude.
standing on the NFL logo. I thought even are you trying to be are you trying to be Terrell Owens? Are you trying to like do this? He's standing there doing this. Hey, I'm open. It's like, no, you're not open actually. And he's on the other side of the field. Why don't you try to run over to his side of the field? That was amazing. I was like, why do you even want to come back and play? If you're gonna play like that, and he played like crap,
Well, he's standing
why do
there.
you want to play?
Mahomes actually reverses field, is running the ball,
Yeah.
and he's still standing there, like
I,
not going over trying to throw a block.
anything.
It's like, what are
You're
you doing,
expecting
man?
him. Yeah.
Well, he's probably going to retire, so
Right.
he was just mad because he had a whole plan in his head
Yeah.
and it ruined everything.
Well,
He's like, you ruined my proposal. I had this cool hair.
dude, there and more people started talking about that the last couple of days about how he's going to do that. But the look on his face, even in the second quarter, he walks off the field at halftime. I'm like, dude, that's a man that looks like, you know what? It's a wrap.
Yeah, I'm done.
We're done. What's the point? And it's almost like the whole team kind of looked like that. And even Andy Reid looked off. He didn't call a very good game at all. I don't know what they were doing the night before or what happened, but they kind of fell apart.
There was a meme out there and it was like a phone text and it was, what time are we gonna see you tonight? Are you coming out? And then the person put a picture of the Kansas City Chiefs. And then it was like, what's that mean? He's like, oh, I'm not showing up.
But
I do. You got to give a little bit of credit to Philly's coaching staff, though, because they did call a pretty good game when you look at what they did on offense and what they did on defense. They stayed within what game plan that they wanted to do, and they ran it through the whole game.
yeah,
Uh, their their calls on offense, I thought they're really great because they knew Kansas City was going to key on Saquon, so they did play the decoy game, used some play action, got some chunk plays, things like that, and then knew that if they could put pressure on Mahomes, then they could rely on their defense to keep them contained.
and we can't. And when uh, Spagnuolo in the third quarter, he's like, okay, we're making some adjustments. Now we're gonna load up on the outside guys. We're gonna keep the pressure, on Saquon. Then Jalen Hurts ran the ball,
Right.
and that's where he got had those three big rushing plays, and which kept the change moving, and they scored that last touchdown. Oh, yeah, it was. There was nothing complex what the Eagles did offensively, even defensively. Okay, we got four guys. We're not blitzing. We can get to him. And they had confidence that they could do it, and they did. They caused havoc. And offensively, it's like, hey, we're gonna take calculated risks. And that last one to Devontae, they were waiting the whole game for that Devontae. It's like, okay, we're gonna do it now just to finish them off. And
Oh yeah. Did you see the sideline cam of that play
yeah,
call? That was cool. When Sirianni's like, just do it. He's like, just do it. And then they throw it, it's a touchdown, and then he just gets all excited and he's like, yeah, good call.
Yeah.
Well, I like that they showed the Chiefs viewing party. It's just
Oh
like,
man, afterwards, geez. Well, because everybody has a party, right? Now it's a party for losing the Super Bowl, and it looked miserable.
and then every time they showed Taylor Swift, she looked miserable.
Yeah.
Oh, and how they booed. Like, well, because I couldn't really hear during the game, but then like watching some of the clips, like whenever they put her on the screen, there was like boo. It's like, yeah, it's Philly fan.
Well, and that's another thing. It's like Kansas City fan, well, you're not showing up to the Super Bowl for a three-peat. It
Well,
was like,
it seemed like there was a lot more Philly fans than KC
well,
fans.
that sounded there was like 70% was Philly fan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you heard it. I don't know if you heard the audio behind the Cooper DeJean interception. It gets like 10 times as loud when he intercepts it and starts running it back. Like the whole stadium sounds like it's going crazy.
Yeah.
So they definitely, I think, have the fan base there. But wraps up the year there. Uh, but I do want to kind of go back and talk about, you know, wrap up the NFL year. What did the year happen, and what do we expect to happen? And obviously the Browns didn't make it.
Talk about the
But
Uh,
what are the surprises? Like, who played better, who played worse? Like thinking about the overall NFL season, how do we get there?
What do you want? Our biggest disappointment team and
Yeah,
biggest
I mean,
surprise?
yeah, in general, like who played better than you thought, who played worse than you thought, how the season played out.
Well, I think the biggest disappointment was the Niners.
Yeah. Like that's a huge disappointment. Not even you didn't make the playoffs.
Yeah.
Granted, you got a big injury, to Ayuk. They were beat up, and then of course McCaffrey. So I mean that's tough. That's tough when you lose your two probably best offensive players.
Yeah, you still had Debo Samuel, Kittle, um, Juwan Jennings. I mean, you still did. It wasn't like the cupboard was bare.
Right.
Brock Purdy like decreased. He didn't play very well either this year.
Well, and you have a solid defense though that didn't play well either.
Yeah.
Which that's a disappointment when you're considered, probably a top five defense.
Didn't they come in last in the division, or did the
Well, Rams made the
Seahawks?
playoffs. Seattle was right behind them, right? So they
yeah.
may have been last. Yeah. Give me
Here.
a quick pause for a second.
Yeah, so the Niners were last in that division.
Right.
So they went to the Super Bowl and then finished last in the
Finish
division.
last. That's a big disappointment. I mean, Dallas always comes in a big disappointment.
That's just pretty standard, though. I mean,
I mean, we didn't think it was, but the media totally thought this is a big disappointment with the Jets.
Yeah.
I was gonna say the Jets just because you can only win like 5 games. You got talent on defense. They had some weapons. I mean, Devontae Adams. They have weapons. Like that's it. That's all you can do.
Yeah, you got two solid running backs. You already had Garrett Wilson,
Yeah.
and you also bring in Devontae Adams. That's a pretty big disappointment, considering that how great, everybody believes Aaron Rodgers is. You would expect them to make the playoffs.
Yeah, now
Or be close. I mean, they weren't even close. Like,
Cincinnati, a little bit of a disappointment as well, I think. I definitely had them in the playoffs. Their defense was just horrible.
Yeah.
You've got, Chase had a great year. Burrow had a great statistical year, but you can't stop anybody. You can't win games if you can't play any defense. Pittsburgh, I think, was a surprise. I think they played above what you would have thought. Interesting thing about Pittsburgh because they had the losing streak, right, going into the playoffs. What do you think Pittsburgh would have looked like if they had just stayed with Fields all year? Would have been the same?
I think that would have been worse. I think if you watch the games Fields won early, it was the defense that won those. And it wasn't, I mean, what it was like the Falcons and they weren't they were like 12 scoring like 12 points all on field goals. You weren't going to make it through a whole season if all you're doing is scoring field goals. And Wilson looked good for
A few games.
like for like an 8 game stretch. It was just at the end of the season. And even some of those games, I mean, what the Browns with the snow game, right? He still played well in that game.
Yeah. It was a tough loss. They lost at the end. But what they lose like 5 or 6 in a row to go into the
Uh,
playoffs?
4.
But it's not a good way to finish your season,
Right.
going to the playoffs. But I still think they were a surprise because I guess it's not a surprise because Tomlin always has a winning record.
Well, that's the rumor now is, they're jettisoning Fields and Wilson for you know who? Aaron Rodgers.
Jeez.
Well, no, but here's the thing. Why? Yeah, you're getting rid of Wilson, but you're not getting rid of Fields too. I mean, that's just
They're both free agents.
oh God,
Well,
that's
yeah,
right.
because that was just a single year sign for Fields.
Oh, but for Aaron Rodgers, I mean,
The best is like, okay, Mike Tomlin got the best out of Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown. You don't think he can handle Aaron Rodgers?
Well, I guess that it brings the question, is Aaron Rodgers done, or can he go to a team like Pittsburgh and still compete at a high level?
Well, because Devontae Adams will probably go with him.
well, here's the thing: is he still has he still has his skills are somewhat diminished. His ability to run is severely diminished. It's a matter of him. He can still make a lot of throws. He can still win the games. He can still get in the playoffs. Question is he going to be healthy? Is something going to happen? Because if he gets hurt, your season's a wrap. I mean, you might as
Yeah.
well bring back Cody Pickett, you know, as a backup.
He has more Super Bowl passing yards than what was it like what was it, Dak Prescott and
Right.
it's so funny. I forgot the list. It was like a bunch of
Yeah,
because he had like what, 3 yards or whatever.
yeah, like 10.
That's actually, that is interesting um, to talk about that. But Pittsburgh in general, like they still have a solid defense, right? So if they get, a good quarterback in place, they got Pickens, they got um,
Yeah.
a couple good running backs in Warren and
Wow.
Harris is a free agent.
Harris.
Yeah, Warren. Yeah, Najee. They could do without Najee. I think. Hey, what are we talking? We're throwing shade on Kirk Cousins here. What about Kirk? What about
Yeah,
catching
he could go to Pittsburgh.
Kirk?
If Atlanta lets him go,
Right.
Oh, geez.
Well, if you're Atlanta, like, what do you do at this point, right? We talked about this before, but do you keep Cousins again, and do you start him again, or is it time to
hmm,
move on?
all the ball.
It's Penix time, but you're gonna want something good for Cousins.
Yeah.
You want someone to overpay for him
Yeah.
in a
You
trade.
want someone who's desperate, which I don't see why you'd be desperate for him. But if you need if you want to win now and you want a veteran, he's good enough to sit there and hope that he is as good as he always everyone thinks he is, but he never is. I know it sounds stupid, but some teams, some front offices are delusional. Like, oh yeah, he'll get us the Super Bowl. Really? I
Well,
mean, you better have an awful good nucleus all around you. Yes, in the perfect situation, like it's like Trent Dilfer going to the Super Bowl. Yes, perfect situation, you know?
well, let's say Ward and Sanders go 1-2. You think the Giants wouldn't want Kirk Cousins?
No, that's of course.
And then they draft like Travis Hunter, right?
Yeah. I mean, for right now, I mean, why would you, yeah, get Travis? I mean, I think the Giants probably would be like realistic, like, okay, we didn't get the top two guys. Let's just see what happens and try to get some wins. And Gable is like, hey, maybe we could show that, hey, we can actually put together a somewhat playoff team, which we're probably not going to play the playoffs, but we'll get close. It's better than last year.
Well, that's the thing is Dayball and Shane, whatever his name is, they're probably out of a job if they don't
Oh, yeah.
improve.
They have,
Yo,
they have
100%.
they have to dramatically improve. And if they barely like, okay, we barely missed the playoffs. That's improving. That keeps your job. So
I mean,
yeah,
seriously.
you get a veteran like Kirk Cousins, he can get you 7 games or 8 games and you barely miss the playoffs or you make it. That's good enough to keep your job. After
I mean, if you're the owner of the Giants and you watch Saquon Barkley win a Super Bowl with the Philadelphia Eagles,
That's rough.
after your GM told you he's not going to Philadelphia.
I mean, everybody kind of knew that that was a bad situation when it happened.
And it's like you let Saquon go, you let Xavier McKinney go. They both are like all pros.
Well, and you're giving them to your division rival, which I think is even worse.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a rough situation. But I mean, Kirk Cousins, I could see that he could be a commodity for some teams. I mean, Giants, Browns, they need a quarterback in the
they
worst way.
they talk about Browns being pretty much the top destination for Kirk Cousins.
Well, yeah, if they go Hunter or Abdul,
Right.
they might go Abdul Carter because they're gonna have to trade Miles Garrett
Yeah,
now.
apparently Garrett wants to leave too, right? Which I don't think is a horrible thing for them, because you don't want somebody who doesn't want to be there.
And you got to get good. I mean, the only issue I have with that is okay, so you're Miles Garrett, who you're like arguably the number one or top three edge rusher in the NFL, right? He want to go to a contender. So that means it's not like the greatest draft picks.
Yeah. Yeah, you're not going to get a ton.
I mean, it's going to be end of the first round draft picks. So it's like you got to get three, I think.
Oof. That's a
Well, think
lot.
about it. Khalil Mack, what they got two for Khalil Mack,
Yeah.
but the Bears weren't. They were in the mid, you know what I mean? They weren't.
No, yeah, they barely made the playoffs. They weren't a top tier team, 100%.
But like that's where Miles Garrett wants to go as a top tier team,
Right.
the Lions.
Yeah, so let's talk about the Lions for a second. Like, how disappointing was it for the Lions to not go to the Super Bowl?
Well, let's ask Lions fans.
Yeah, Lions. Tell us, Lions fans.
Like that's just I mean, I became a bandwagon fan. I bought a hat and I wore it. And I'm still trying to find the Eddie Murphy like Detroit Lions from Beverly Hills Cop 2. I like the Lions, and I was super upset. I mean, San Francisco was the worst one.
Yeah.
And then Washington's like, that was just a shock. It was just shocking. So, yeah, I mean,
Well, going into the playoffs though, right? If you're betting, you have to make a bet out of the NFC. You're mostly people are choosing the Lions at that point.
yeah, it was around week 7 when the Lions were clearly the favorite. But I said everyone watch out for the Eagles because that's when they started. Saquon started like going off. Their defense was playing well. I was like, okay, the Eagles could be scary. You know, so as this next year, it's kind of about them replacing their coordinators. You have the same guys there, it looks like. Now you just got to replace Ben Johnson. You got to,
Yeah,
which
and Aaron Glenn.
I,
Yeah, I
I,
mean,
I think they could manage that. I think they should be fine. But man, did Jared Goff just really just completely in that Washington game, like, dude, what you can't do that.
yeah.
He is who we
You look
thought he
like you
was.
look like Jared Goff from Super Bowl 53, dude. Where you're like the only team in Super Bowl history that didn't score a touchdown. I mean, that's how you looked, and you don't want to go back. No one wants to see that if you're a Detroit Lions fan. You got
Right.
all these weapons. You got Jameson Williams. Oh, do I have security blankets. I got Laporta. I got St. Brown. It's like you can't. Like he's gonna have to play better when it matters.
Well, yeah,
He
because
played,
Montgomery, the offensive line is one of the best in the NFL too. It's like, dude,
yeah, but their defense fell apart. I mean, they had 17 injuries. It's that is just you can almost put an asterisk right there. Like, okay, they lost like their whole defense, and
their
so
defense isn't causing Goff to throw a bunch of interceptions.
true. I know.
I mean, you got to look at that and you got to say, what's your future look like with Goff? Do you always going to run into this in the big games? Can he lead
Maybe they'll
them
go to
to a
Hendon
Super Bowl?
Hooker then.
I mean, you got him. Why not? Let's put him in. So overall, though, that was a big disappointment. Even though it wasn't like a San Francisco type where
Hmm.
preseason, beginning of the season, you're like, this is going to be a top team. It was a top team who most people thought would probably be playing in the
But
Super Bowl.
yeah, there's been a lot of quarterbacks in Super Bowl history that it took them a couple times. I mean, shoot, it took Stabler 4 times to get to the Super Bowl. You know, it happens. And look at Donovan McNabb. He didn't win it, but it took him forever to get this. To me, third time's the charm. You got to get it done this year. I don't care who your coordinators are. I mean, you're playing catch. I don't care who's calling plays. Like you're out there playing catch with some of the best receivers. You got thunder and lightning in the backfield. You got offensive line. You got to get it done.
So what's Detroit's chances next year? Are they still a top team? Are they still
Oh
your
yeah,
top couple Super Bowl contenders?
yeah, they should be. And you never know. I don't care the Eagles or the Eagles. The Eagles, they could come in and they could have injuries. Something can happen. It's
They have a
something.
lot of free agents.
Like a lot of free agents. They got Sweat. They got to pay. They got to pay people. I think they're 22nd in the cap right now. They don't have a lot of money to pay these guys, so they
They
can
have like
lose that.
7 people on
Yeah,
50 million plus contracts.
yeah. Yeah, that's the thing about
I mean, that's a lot, for one team.
yeah, and they all I think they're going to struggle at times next year. They're not going to be dominant. They have those they catch fire at the right time. It seems like But consistently, I don't see them being as consistent as Detroit next year. Detroit should be the favorite. They should be the one seed again. I don't think the Niners are gonna improve that much. I think they're kind of getting a little long in the tooth.
Yeah.
And I think, you don't know what's gonna happen with Christian McCaffrey. I mean, I think it sounds like he has tendonitis. And that could be, that could kind of like, hit the rest of his career.
Yeah, that's career ending sometimes.
And so,
Madden curse.
yeah. And Washington is just too, you never know. Uh, Teams might figure out Jane Daniels next year. Detroit should be at the top, not the one, but the two next year, easily.
So NFC teams top three for next year. The way too early top three in the NFC.
It is way too early. Um,
Detroit, you know, sounds like they're in right there. Uh, what about the Rams? The Rams come back?
it depends about Stafford. There's way too many. There's too much talk about Staff. I think Stafford's going to stay. I don't think that's. But it was,
I mean, who else can you look at? Like, I mean, I don't see Minnesota being as good as they were this year again.
What about your Bears, Steve?
It's a coin flip on the Bears, right? I mean, it's the same thing that you bring in a new coach again, and you're asking them to start a new scheme and have a new culture and do everything over again. Do they have the players to do it? I think they do.
yeah, I think there's a drop off from Detroit Eagles drop off, and by default, I look at the Packers just because of the nucleus they have. I think Jordan Love will play better.
Well, and they're
I
very
think
young.
I think Jordan Love has to play better and learn how to not throw off his back foot all the time. And he even admitted that during the Super Bowl pressers. He talked about it. He's like, yeah, because they asked him, where can you improve? He's like, yeah, I've been throwing off balance, way too much. I mean, they got a good nucleus there. It's just,
You
you
take the
know,
Packers over the Commanders?
it's a coin flip. It just depends on if Jaden Daniels could keep up what he did. Yeah, I would edge maybe the Packers just because, um, you know, you're building the Packers around their running game more, and it's more of a solid running game defensively. I mean, like I said, there's a drop off.
Yeah, I
And
was just curious. Like, if you put the Packers and Commanders next year, like you had to choose who's going to be a better team, who you taking a higher rank.
Well, it's all the key. Here's the thing is like, here's another disappointment we didn't talk about the Texans,
Oh, yeah,
right? We were
yeah.
like, oh man, the Texans are going to be the number,
They did win a playoff game.
yeah, and they made the playoffs, but they didn't look anything dominant like we thought. And a
Right.
lot was because CJ Stroud came back down to earth. And I think that's what Wes is saying about Jaden Daniels is we love Jaden Daniels, but
Yeah.
history states you have a great rookie year, then people start getting tape on you. So we'll see how well he does.
Sophomore slump.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I think at this point, I'm still would put the Commanders ahead of the Packers, though, if I had to choose for
Well,
next year.
that's because you always choose that.
Yeah, I mean, I hate the Packers, but I mean, I liked what the Commanders did. Like, you think about their season, it was pretty amazing. Go to the playoffs, then you start winning playoff games. You get a chance to go to the Super Bowl, technically. I mean, they were right there. Imagine if you send the Commanders in the Super Bowl.
Well, Wes had them going to the playoffs
Yeah.
at the beginning of the year in the early.
Yeah.
I mean,
It
is there anything out of the South that is any kind of contention for next year? The NFC
You
South?
never know without the Falcons, right?
it's I mean, it seems like every decade the Falcons come out of nowhere. Like, I mean, they've been to two Super Bowls, but it happens like seems like every 10 years they're right there. You never know. I mean, I don't know. I don't think really saw enough of Penix to really say, is this guy, can he take them to another level, which Kirk Cousins can't? You know, it's a
About
big
the
question.
Panthers.
I already,
The
I thought
Panthers.
they,
The Panthers got a ways to go.
they do, but I do, you know, I like I like the way they play at the end of the season, but
Yeah.
or we're talking about making a run in the playoffs here.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
don't say that.
That's not the Panthers.
Bryce Young, you know what? I kind of wish he was on a different team because I think we'd know more. I think he's good enough to do some stuff on a better team.
For me, he's just a not as quite elite version as Drew Brees, right?
That's what I've compared. I compared him. He's just not as good as Drew Brees, but he's
He's a
a
similar style
he's a
quarterback.
B. He's a B to him, and that's better than what the effing Raiders have. I mean, I'll take that over Aiden O'Connell or Gardner or the redhead.
The red. So, I mean, in the NFC, what I'm hearing and kind of we're on the same all on the same page here, it's kind of like Detroit and Philly, and then everybody else,
Yeah, depending on what Philly, if how many of their players they retain.
right? Even if they don't retain them all, they still have a really good, solid, team though.
Yeah.
I mean, though, it is. So we look. I know it's Sweat and Milton Williams. Offense is pretty okay. It's the defense. You got Zach Bond, Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham, Avonte Maddox, Milton Williams, Oren Burks.
Burks. And they want to retain Burks too.
Yeah. So you're talking like your nickelback or your fourth corner, your stud linebacker in Bond because he came out. I mean, he's an all pro.
Yeah, he had a great year.
Sweat and Williams both getting what 2 sacks in the Super Bowl.
Right.
And Oren Burks, what didn't he take over for Nolan Smith?
But you still have Nolan Smith. Like again, if you lose him, like
Yeah.
you still have a
Yeah, but
pretty good.
he's not going to be back until like halfway through this
Sure.
season, though.
And that hurts them, right? I still don't think that it hurts them enough to drop them, into a category with any of the middle echelon NFC teams.
Right. Well, their offense is still going to be amazing.
Right. So maybe there's not a top three in the NFC. Maybe it's a top two. Well, let's jump over to AFC side then. Kind of same question. Like who can we look at next year to lead the AFC?
Not Casey.
Not Kansas City. Wes says it's the end of a dynasty.
No, it's not. They have one more year left, and then it'll be the end.
I mean, they're solid. Like they're still a
Yeah.
solid team.
Yeah.
Um,
I think it's Baltimore. I think it's
Baltimore.
Baltimore's next year is it's them. They should be the favorite. Um,
So Baltimore, the number one. I mean, I think I can agree with that.
yeah.
I got 4 teams that are Like, in the NFC it was two, AFC it's four.
Okay.
You got Baltimore, Buffalo, KC, and Cincinnati.
Yeah. And I think Cincinnati's they're gonna I think Cincinnati can retain both Chase and Higgins, possibly, and improve on their defense. I mean, they just need to improve on their defense is so bad. They just got some stops. And
Right.
they don't play it's the first 4 games of the season almost every year. Nobody plays good. Even Burrow doesn't play good. They got to start the season off at least go 2-2.
No, they love going like 0-2 and
Yeah,
saying,
0-3.
let's try to make the
Yeah,
playoffs.
it's like you kidding me? Like if you just try to split the first couple games and
And
then
it's always against bad teams too,
yeah.
Yeah,
early on.
So the Cincinnati, I agree. I think Cincinnati's dangerous if they can keep Higgins.
right.
Um,
Yeah,
and
so KC, Cincinnati, Buffalo, Baltimore. Is Buffalo back on the rise? Are they staying even, or they may lose a little?
I think they might be getting better. I felt like this year that should have been a down year for Buffalo.
Right. Well, they overachieved.
Yeah.
So they move faster into their development than we thought they would, and so next year should be even more of a development for them.
Right. Because I feel Coleman will take a step and they'll get more players.
Are there any other teams in the AFC that have that ability to, advance next year, get better, and put themselves potentially in that upper echelon?
Well, you got the Texans. If they can get their offensive line under control, I mean, they had a chance of beating the Chiefs. But here's the one that's the surprising one, the Jaguars.
Are going to be good? Are you saying the Jags are going to
Think about it.
be
2 years
good?
ago, it was all given that they were going to win the division, and then they just fell off
Right.
the earth. This last year, Lawrence got hurt, and they weren't really anything. A new head coach, coming in. They have what, the fifth pick in the draft. They'll probably get like Mason Graham or somebody on the defense to go with Javon Walker. They're going to be good. I think it's Trevor Lawrence's year to show that he's worth the money.
Well, he has to at this point.
Yeah.
I mean,
But is he that good? I don't think I'm a big Trevor Lawrence fan.
He's got Mr. Duval now, so we'll see. I mean, Mr. OC.
I actually like the Colts better than the Jags.
I don't know. I'm a big fan of Anthony Richardson, but it sounds like the Colts aren't.
yeah,
Right.
it's someone actually said the best spot for Aaron Rodgers to go is the Colts. And I was like, I was like, actually, that's not a bad idea. Because you have Anthony Richardson there already. He's
Just
supposed
sits
to be
for another year.
he's supposed to be your one, but it's like they almost want to bench him. Seems like, you know,
Well, apparently they like 40-year-old quarterbacks. Just bring in what's his name? Uh, I do think Jonathan Taylor's a good running back. I think they have decent receivers. Downs and Pittman are good. Their defense doesn't have a lot of stars, but it has a good core. So I could see the Colts making some noise. Like they were close. They weren't far off from the playoffs.
no, I mean you got to commit and you got to commit that you're Anthony Richardson's Anthony Richardson. We know what his upside is, but you need to commit to building your offense around Jonathan Taylor
Yeah.
exclusively. And, or or have, running back by committee as well. You got to commit to running the football with Anthony Richardson and play action and throw the ball 80 yards for touchdowns. That's how you should run. And then Anthony Richardson, he's going to run the ball, throw the ball over a mountain, and get Anthony Richardson in space. That should be your offense. And you could do some damage in the playoffs with that. You can get a lucky streak, you can catch fire, and their defense is always good enough.
Well, let's talk about your guys' favorite team, the Denver Broncos.
Boo.
Uh, like what do the Broncos look like next year? What are their chances? They obviously overachieved this year. So if you want to talk about overachievers, I think the Broncos were a huge one.
Yeah, I don't think they make the playoffs next year.
Are they so they're
I think they come
digressing?
down a little bit. I don't think you're like you said, no one was expecting it. Now you're going to have a little more game plan on Bo Nix. They still don't have that great of a roster.
More confidence in Bo Nix or more confidence in Justin Herbert? There we go.
That's a good question.
Because
More confidence in Marcus Mariota than both. We're going Oregon quarterbacks.
I do like the Chargers' chances next year. I think they continue to improve. I like Harbaugh's coaching style. Unfortunately, they just had a horrible game against the Texans. They should have won that game. So yeah, I'm taking Herbert over Knicks, the Chargers over the Broncos as far as progression next year.
I don't know. I look at Herbert against the Texans, Herbert against the Jags.
yeah,
I mean, Herbert in the playoffs.
Well, I mean, but he only threw two interceptions like all year, and he threw four in the playoff game.
I mean, we were just talking about Jared Goff,
Right.
in the
But
big games, what he did.
we also said the Lions are going to come back and probably be the number one team.
yeah.
But that's despite
Jared
Jared
Goff.
Goff.
They
Right.
were it. Herbert throwing two interceptions tells you that Harbaugh was okay. He knows the way he wants to run the football, and it's a brand new offense for Herbert, and they were playing a little bit more conservative. Next year, probably he's going to be better than he was this year, even though,
Yeah, I mean, statistically, he had a great season.
yeah, but they still need. I still think they need skill guys. So that's probably what they want to do in the draft,
Right.
or get some free agents. They need. I mean, Herbert's. You want to utilize Herbert's ability to get the ball down the field. You need guys that can stretch the field.
Well, they struck gold with McCogney.
Oh yeah, but they need more than that.
Right. I mean, I and the other guy, what's his name? The other receiver came from Texas or from what's the receiver, the big receiver they got from
Oh, you're talking Quentin Johnson?
yeah, Quentin.
Quentin
Yeah,
Johnston.
he's
Quentin
playing
Johnson.
better. But
He's gonna get better. And he's solid, right? So they do have a couple solid receivers. Running backs, I mean, they're good enough. They're going to do running back by committee. I think that's kind of Harbaugh's game plan.
Well, they're gonna have to, if they want, they have to re-sign Dobbins. He's a free agent. Um,
Yeah, I don't know that it matters. I mean, like you said, they'll probably just grab a running back out of the draft, right?
but
Second, third round.
Dobbins had a big year, and I'm
Yeah, I mean,
looking at their
I'm not a
free
huge
agents.
I'm not a huge Dobbins fan as far as like explosiveness. He's a good ball control guy, which I think you can get a lot of places.
Yeah, they got a lot. I mean, it's none of their superstars except Mac, but Mac is getting up there.
Yeah, he's
But they have a
near the end.
lot, I mean, of players that need either to be re-signed or what. But they do have the fourth most cap space.
Yeah.
So maybe they'll go after T. Higgins.
Oh,
That'd be a great place for T. Higgins, to be honest. But they have a solid line, right? Too. They got Slater, they got Alt
Alt.
now.
Yeah.
uh, I
Who
mean,
has a better record next year? Broncos or Chargers?
Chargers.
Chargers.
the Chargers should have a better record.
Yeah. Can anybody beat Kansas City for the division?
I think the Chargers could, but I still don't see it. I still think Kansas City has the even if they lose Kelsey, they'll retool, they'll change things around. Mahomes will be healthy. They should win the division. I don't see them dropping that much if they do drop. You know, maybe Kelsey retires and it opens up the offense more. Maybe that's the problem. It's too stagnant in the middle. I mean, you got no one running through the middle because he's there. You know,
I
maybe.
mean, they only scored 30 points one time all year.
Yeah.
I don't know. They had a ton. What I've seen in history is when you win a ton of one score games, the next year it might not go your way.
Yeah.
I mean, they could have been 5-12 this year.
Right. They're very close. Like you look at a lot of the finishes and things that happened that they won the games, penalties, blocked field goals, things like that. I mean, they were very lucky to have the record they had.
I mean, they could win the division with Mahomes spreading the ball around to 8 different guys all year
Yeah.
because that's just the way he operates. And he's going to come back extra motivated after what happened in the Super Bowl. So I see them still winning the division. Maybe Kate or the Chargers challenging to a certain extent. The Chargers got to show more offense. Herbert needs to have a Pro Bowl year. Like I'm in the top 3 the whole year when it comes to throwing the football for them to do that.
So you guys aren't sold on the Broncos at all.
I this I give them somewhat of a chance just because of the way they can play defense and run the ball. They're going to upgrade at the receiver position probably. They have a chance, but you never know. Bo Nix looks great. Just look at Oregon. Bo Nix looks like one of the best quarterbacks in college football, and then he can look like a bottom tier very quickly. And
I mean,
so
statistically, he outplayed Jaden McDaniels.
he did. Yeah.
I mean, so it's not like he had a bad year. Like he had a great year.
No.
And
So
then you look at their defense, what finished top 10, top 5 in certain categories by the end of the year.
I mean, shoot, head to head. I mean, could they be second ahead of the Chargers? I think they could be. I just don't think it's as likely.
Right.
I mean, come on, the Chargers. You got Harbaugh. You got everything right here. It's like you should be the second best team in that division. If you're not, then there's a problem.
Well, and I don't like to doubt the Chiefs because every time you doubt them, they still do. It is prime for the taking.
Yeah.
Uh, they only have 6 million in cap, and they got Trey Smith. Their guard is gone
Yeah,
because
he's
he's going
gone.
to get
He's going to the Bears.
um You got Kareem Hunt and Pirine are both free agents. Hollywood Brown, Hardman, Hopkins, Juju, Justin Watson, all these receivers are free agents. Justin Reed is a free agent. Nick Bolton, um, Uche, Nandi, a bunch of their off defensive linemen are free agents. They're not going to be able to get them all back.
No. But and even in a retooling year though, like Kansas City's still dangerous.
Right. And they only got 6 draft picks too.
Yeah. So I think that's one of my most interesting divisions, which is why, I kind of want to bring up Chargers and Broncos and Chiefs. I think that should be a fun division to watch next year, minus the Raiders. But you
We
never
got
know.
Brock Bowers, dude. Come on.
Did you got Chip Kelly now?
Brock Bowers and Chip Kelly were good. Brock Bowers threw the ball to himself.
He's pretty ridiculous. Like you watch Brock Bowers play for a rookie in the NFL, the way he played, that's pretty crazy.
And the Raiders did have the second most players on injured reserve last year.
Yeah.
And a lot of that, and that's the differences between the Lions and the Raiders. The Lions had the most, and they still had the best record. But when John Gruden was drafting horrible draft picks for five, whatever many years, and you haven't had a good first rounder in how many years, that's what happens. You have no depth. So we'll see. The last year's draft was good, so we'll see what happens here.
Do the Raiders have a chance at all to win the division?
Well, we already know it all comes down to one thing: quarterback, right?
Right.
I've heard Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
Oh, that's tough.
That's a
You don't have Jordan or Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison to throw to.
Yeah, but you do have Brock Bowers, Jacoby Myers, and then at the 6th pick, you could get Datorio McMillan.
Right, right, right. Oh yeah, McMillan would be great for them. That'd be
I
a
mean,
really good pick for the Raiders. Would be McMillan.
and then, like I said about there's like 15 to 20 good running backs in the second or third round. They can get Judkins or Amari Hampton, or you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm not gonna say they don't have a chance. I don't think they're as upcoming as maybe the Broncos or the Chargers, but the Chiefs are falling, right? Or they might. So it
I
might
mean,
open that up a little bit.
here's the thing, and this is why it's because it's the Raiders and they always f things up. But if you look at it, they have the second most cap space and like the third most draft capital in this draft. So with those two things, they should be one of the most improved teams. Should be.
Yeah.
But that also comes with quarterback. If they don't have a quarterback still, then it doesn't matter.
And they don't.
But that's the thing. Is it going to be Darnold? Is it going to be Fields? Is it going to be like Jackson Dart? Or is it
Jackson Dart. How,
well,
how how would you guys feel about Justin Fields going to the Raiders?
I want to care. That's fine with me. And then looking at it this way, I've seen people like, the Tennessee Titans might not take a quarterback.
Right.
Cleveland Browns might not take a quarterback. Then that would leave the Raiders with either Shador or Cam Ward.
They're just hoping at that point. Kind of like last year almost.
Right. Because it's like the Titans talked about they want to get a generational talent.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if we're talking generational talent, who's that going to be? Right? It's Travis Hunter.
Yeah. It's the only one.
And then
But the
if the
Bears
Browns,
thought they were getting a generational talent too, and the same thing. It's like he's just an average quarterback.
well, we'll see. I mean, he didn't play that bad.
Yeah. But he
But,
got sacked
think
a
about
lot and yeah, under pressure a ton.
CJ Stroud last year was an amazing quarterback. This year he was just an okay quarterback. What was the difference? His offensive line sucked. But I think like if I'm the Browns, when we talked about, Kirk Cousins or whatever and taking Abdul Carter because you're getting rid of Miles Garrett, right?
Yeah, then you push back one of those quarterbacks into a later pick.
Yeah.
But that's their need. They definitely have to fix their quarterback situation. Like you can't avoid that any longer.
I don't know though. We talked about this last year. Last year, it's more because there were so many good quarterbacks. But if I'm like the Browns or the Titans, I'm looking to accumulate as many good players as I can before I get a quarterback.
Yeah. You know, especially when you have Travis Hunter there, there's good players that, you know, I mean, the Titans and the Browns need just to accumulate good players, or they trade down and get more players, more draft picks.
Yeah. What is the possibility of a couple of those teams trading back?
Well, it looks like the Jets need a quarterback now. I mean, there's teams that might, hey, we might want,
Yeah,
or
move up a couple spots, give another pick.
yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, the Giants, right? If they want Cam Ward, or they have one quarterback in mind, they're gonna try. If I'm like, yeah, the Titans, and I trade back to three, you either can get, you're still gonna either get Abdul Carter, Hunter, or the other quarterback, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, and we've seen a lot of just moving a couple spots for big trades too,
Yeah,
which
what
is
was
kind of
the,
wild to me, but I guess, you do what you got to do.
what was the wasn't it the Bears for Trubisky, right? Was a huge
Yeah, I
move
mean,
up
move
one
up
spot.
one spot. And I mean, well, and then the Texans did the same thing. When they got the two picks, obviously it worked out good for them, but still, it's like you're given a lot to move in these spots.
Yeah, well, the Texans was different because I think they had to move down. It wasn't like right next to each other. The was it who was it? The Cardinals
Yeah, the Cardinals,
had to move down a few picks
right?
down.
As far as since we're talking draft for a second here, when you talk about we've talked about these top five guys, right? Like, who is the best overall pick? You got Hunter, Carter, Ward, Sanders. Like, what's the top talented guy? Like, who's gonna eventually do the most for their team? Like, who do you really want there?
For me, and it's going to sound crazy, but I'm taking Abdul Carter.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with that at all.
He will absolutely. I mean, think about it. He's like a Micah Parsons, right?
Right.
And I just don't know. So, what is Travis Hunter going to be? Right? Is he a receiver or is he a corner? If he's a corner, I'm not taking him one.
But I mean, I guess the only comparison you can make is Woodson, and he ended up being a Hall of Famer.
Yeah. But Woodson was what, five?
Yeah, yeah. But I'm just saying, talent wise, they're very comparable. In Hunter could be a Woodson type.
Right. I get that. I mean, he was four. Who was it was? But here's the thing is, yeah, I guess it was because he had Peyton Manning, obviously, and then relief. And then I guess my point is wrong because it was Andre Wadsworth, the card took a defensive end.
It's almost the same four picks.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's kind of funny, actually.
And
And
then
then
of course, you know what the fifth pick was?
no.
It was the Bears.
Oh, geez, who did they take back then?
Curtis
Oh,
Enos.
Chris, really?
Yes, at 5.
Well, they've screwed up so many draft picks, it doesn't matter.
And then
So
Fred Taylor went 9, so they could have had Fred Taylor.
right, courtesy. So, Wes, what's your of those top five draft picks we just talked about? Like, who is your top stock guy? You got
I
Sanders, you got Ward, you got Carter, you got Hunter.
I gotta go with I gotta go Cam Ward just because the potential. I mean, he can make all the throws.
Yeah,
Um, a little inconsistent, but I mean, he's a dynamic passer. So just throwing of the football from all different angles, from all on the run, he can run. Um, he's gonna make he should make an instant impact on the right team unless they completely screw it up. You know, it depends on the
For
team.
the Browns, then.
Yeah,
I
and
like
there's
I like Cam Ward. Um,
there's
uh,
teams that they just need someone that can get the ball down the field. I mean, some teams can't even do it.
right.
I mean, and there's a lot of teams that could. I mean, even teams that they think they have a quarterback like Derek Carr. Like, why wouldn't you at this point? Derek Carr's not going to be there that much longer. You know, there's so many teams that need someone that could really have a really strong arm, can make all the throws, can run, and is young.
Yeah, I like Cam Ward a lot as well. Like I said, I still agree. On the same boat as Derek when I think Abdul Carter probably is the biggest impact player when you bring him in there. But I think Cam Ward, you're right, in the right situation, like he can help change a team, change their dynamic, help them stretch the field, give them a weapon that the offense or the defense has to account for.
Problem is Cam Ward or Shador Sanders going to Titans or the Browns.
No,
They're
no, no. Yeah,
over.
that's
You're just
not.
killing them.
Yeah, you're just throwing that away. I mean, at least with the Giants, you have some weapons. You got neighbors. You know, you can have a connection with neighbors. Instantly. That could be dynamic. I mean,
How
there's
many top quarterbacks have the Browns drafted?
why
Have you seen that? It's like a jersey. Someone has it, and it's like 20 something names on it.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? Remember when Tim Couch came out and you're like,
that was
Tim
the,
Couch is going to be so good.
who said that? Was
I
it
mean, he was
Kuiper?
great in college. He was awesome in college.
With the Kentucky though.
Well, the thing wasn't that they were the expansion team though?
Yeah,
Yeah.
And so he just got murdered. But yeah, here we go. Brady Quinn,
right.
Brandon Weeden, Johnny Manziel, Baker Mayfield, and Tim Couch are all first round picks.
Brandon Wheaton.
Yeah.
That's wild.
And like pretty high for some of those. Some of those picks are pretty.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously Baker's number one.
And so is Tim Couch. They had two number
Yeah,
ones.
two number ones.
And then Manziel was at the end of the first.
Yeah, 21st or something like that.
Yeah. And then Whedon was like, he was 22nd. And then Brady Quinn was like 24th or something, wasn't he? Something like that.
So the Browns are just out here ruining quarterbacks.
Pretty much. Oh yeah, here we go. So, okay, that one doesn't count. Spurgeon win in the 6th round. Colt or Luke McCown in the 4th. Charlie Fry in the 3rd. Brady Quinn 22nd overall. Oh, Colt McCoy in the 3rd. Brandon Weeden 22nd overall. Johnny Manziel 22nd overall. Cody Kessler in the third round, Deshaun Kaiser in the second round,
Oh yeah, Kaiser.
Baker, Dorian Thompson Robinson the fifth. Yeah, that was all since 2000. So that doesn't count Tim Couch.
Right.
But
Boy, that's rough. I guess you just don't want to be a quarterback in Cleveland.
well, the Browns should never take a quarterback at number 22 ever again.
All right, well let's wrap NFL. I mean, this is the wrap the season. Obviously we'll get back into drafts, talk more about drafts, give the love to do the mock drafts. So that'll be coming up. But yeah, that's a wrap to the NFL. So let's finish off our tonight with the top five. So we got a great top five tonight. Top five SNL cast members.
Well, yeah, because I think, isn't it Saturday is the 50th anniversary, right?
Right. This is a really tough top five.
Well, it's hard because I feel like you need people from different generations to do a top five on this
Right.
because everyone's generation, they think they have the best.
Uh,
Well, the issue, I mean, I agree with that, but I also believe that in every generation they've created good cast members. Like
Right.
there's always been people that have risen up or been like, wow, that person's great. And if you watch Saturday Night Live your whole life, especially at our age, you got a lot of different looks at different generations.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what makes it hard for people who watched SNL, in the 80s, for example, versus watching it now, or maybe you've only watched it for 10 years, 15
Right.
years. So it changes that dynamic. But I will tell you, as a person who's watched it for years and years and years, I started watching SNL when I was like 8 years old.
Right.
It was there's still people that stand out. Like there's still times where you're like this person, was good, great in those eras. So although probably most of mine fall into a certain era, which might contradict what I just said. So before we get into the actual top five, like just talk about SNL in general. I get it. Like lately, they may have be more or less political, or whatever you want to call it these days. But generationally and historically, it's such a great show, and they've never been afraid to tackle issues, right? Like if something's happening in the world, like you're probably going to see a skit on
Right. Yeah. And then, yeah, from the very start to now, yeah, it's kind of, yeah, I've enjoyed, yeah, I'm more, I haven't watched as much. There was like a time frame where I didn't watch any. And then like lately, I haven't watched as much, but I do really, really enjoy, and it's an honorable mention, the Please Don't Destroy group. Have you seen any of
it.
their
I haven't
sketches?
seen that one.
They're like this generation's Lonely Island, so they do pre-recorded sketches.
Hmm.
They are hilarious. That's a trio, and they just do like a sketch here, sketch there with the host.
Oh,
So
that's
you should
fun.
check them out.
I gotta see that. I think the funniest thing I've seen lately is the when Nate Bargatze went on there and hosted, and they did some skits with him because he's a comedian, by trade, and those were pretty hilarious.
And then if you want to, I think it's on Peacock or something. Saturday night, the It's the new movie about the first night the Saturday Night Live show came on, and it was directed by Jason Reitman from his dad was,
Yeah,
and that was an interesting look
I'll have
behind
to
the.
check that out. All right, well, let's get into it. HSC Podcast top five SNL cast members. So yeah, number five. I'll start here. It's probably not going to be the most popular, but I had to put in Pete Davidson. Are there people who I think were better than Pete Davidson over the years? Probably, but because of the time frame in which he was there, and he was really good comparatively to a lot of the people he was with, and he did a great job. Like he played some very funny parts, but I think he knows what he is, and that's what he does. He doesn't try to be anything he's not, which I really like about him. And so I bumped Pete Davidson up more than I should have to get him into the top five.
I'll admit, when he was first on, I'm like, I don't like this guy,
Right.
whatever. But
I agree.
now it's like now I appreciate him a lot more than I did then.
Kind of the same thing. That's why I had to bump him up. So that's my number five.
Well, going off of number fives that are like, really? That's who's in your top five? And it's just because he's to me is one of the funniest people that ever lived. And he got fired for doing some of the funniest stuff on SNL. And that's Norm Macdonald.
Oh God.
Norm Macdonald's Weekend Update, where he kept bringing up
Yeah.
O.J. Simpson. It was-
It, there's no better weekend update than Norm Macdonald. Weekend Update's one of the best bits that Saturday Night Live's ever done.
yeah, it started from the beginning, right?
Right.
I mean,
But
Dennis Miller is really good too,
Dennis
but
Miller was great.
Norm
I mean,
Macdonald,
even what's
like
remember that one? What's his name?
Colin Quinn.
Colin Quinn was even good.
Yeah. But just the fact that they told Norm, like the head of like the NBC told Norm Macdonald, stop doing jokes about OJ. He's a friend of mine. He just didn't stop.
You gotta love Norm Macdonald. First of all, like just in general. But
And then I
yeah,
think of always the Jeopardy where he's Burt Reynolds.
yeah.
Hey,
Oh.
Turd Ferguson. Yeah.
No, that's a great number five there. All right, Wes, what do you got at five?
Mm, I haven't seen too many of them, especially lately. But Dana Carvey, I always like, is my number five. Just playing all the presidents, and last one, Joe Biden, was hilarious. But
He does the best George Bush,
yeah,
like the best. Um, Dana Carvey's actually a great comedian. So I think, the roles he played on Saturday Night Live as well, he just fit right in. So yeah, I can go with that. I like it. Number four. What do you got, Eric?
Dana Carvey. And I know like he was great with Bush, but I loved his H. Ross Perot.
Oh yeah.
oh yeah,
Bro. Yeah, so good.
And then, yeah, I mean, he's Garth, he's the church lady, for Hans and Franz. It's so many different. The one of his first episodes he does where he like the song about broccoli,
Yeah.
chopping broccoli.
He does have great range. When you bring up all those parts and you think about it, like that's some good range. then he started making movies too, which he did a couple, not
Well,
box office smashes, but they were pretty good. Clean Slate and the Moving.
for me, it was the one I watched like a million times was Opportunity Knocks.
Opportunity Knocks. Yeah, it's great.
And then he has a bit part in Moving with Richard Pryor where
Yeah.
he's like he has multiple personalities. It's,
I love his part in Moving. It's great.
yeah.
Opportunity Knocks, though, that's actually really good. That's a great movie. All right, Wes, what do you got for?
Uh, Old school, which I do remember Chevy Chase.
Yeah.
First weekend update.
I mean, it's hard not to go with Chevy Chase, right? It's great about Chevy Chase is it's not his range is different. It's not so much range like it is with other people. It's his ability to everything he does is just really good.
Yeah.
The Richard Pryor in him sketch. So good.
So my number four, it may be a little bit of a stretch too, but I took Will Ferrell here. If you go back and you watch like SNL skits with Will Ferrell, I think he breaks people more than anybody else live, where they can't like hold in their laughter. Like they're in the middle of a sketch and they're breaking. And so he's one of the best at breaking people, and I think that makes for a very good sketch comedian.
Well, and then I think they voted like More Cowbell is the number one sketch of all time for SNL.
Yeah. So he was great for me. So I gotta put Will Ferrell in there. All right, number three. You got three, Wes.
I just got Keenan Thompson because honestly, that's the one I've seen the last 10 years, and I haven't really liked Saturday Night Live that much in the last 10 years, but he's always funny.
Yeah.
It's just like it's the only reason to watch it sometimes. I mean, every little skit he does, whether it's he's like the main guy or just the random dude, he's always like some random dude. But I mean, he's been on longer than almost anybody.
Yeah. And there
What
was
have
a
you seen
time
most?
frame where he was kind of like the show.
Yeah.
Have you seen the Beavis and Butthead sketch?
Oh God, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you haven't seen that one and you're listening, you gotta watch that one. That's great. What's his name?
Ryan
Ryan
Gosling.
Gosling, yes. He's great. He's good in that one. So my three already been said because I'm such a huge Norm Macdonald fan. And so I he gets a special place in the list, and I put him at three. And it's not just I mean, it is for Weekend Update because he was amazing, but it's his style of humor for me. That makes me laugh. And so because of the way he does it and the way it like,
His delivery always
yeah,
was so
Yeah, it's
good.
hilarious.
exactly. That's what it is. He delivers in a way that I want to be delivered to.
Have you seen, I think if it was on Conan, he did a thing. He's like, here's the greatest joke ever. Have you ever seen that one?
I think I've seen it. I don't remember.
Well, it's a joke that goes on forever. And
Yeah.
that's what's hilarious about the joke. And it's like about a bug and stuff. Yeah. It's hilarious because of how long it goes.
It's the drier, but like the funny part of it, he's not trying to make you laugh. Like you're laughing just because of his normal, the way he is. And so I have to throw Norm Macdonald up there. All right, what do you got, three, Derek?
My number three, I did only one from the old cast, the originals, and it's going to be Dan Aykroyd. Yeah, Dan Aykroyd at three.
Yeah.
Bassomatic, and Jane, you ignorant slut, and Wild and Crazy Guys.
We are two wild
Coneheads
and crazy guys.
is the Coneheads, it's
Oh, he's just so good in general.
yeah. That was like that original cast was such an all-star cast because
Yeah.
after most of them even after SNL were amazing.
Yeah, it's hard to believe how many of them, how good they were and how many of them moved on to do, bigger and better things.
Right. Well, Chevy Chase leaves. Oh, well, who are we going to replace Chevy Chase with? Bill Murray.
Right. Uh, Spoiler, he's not on my list, but man, he was hard not to put on there.
His yeah, Bill Murray's yeah, he's not on mine either, but when he does the lounge singer,
Yeah.
Star Wars.
Dude, there's nothing better than Bill Murray playing Big Earn in the bowling movie,
Yeah, Kingpin.
Kingpin. Oh, I love Bill Murray. So yeah, great. That's a good one. So my number two is this might not be most people might not understand him, but Phil Hartman is just so good. Again, it's not as dry as maybe like a Norm Macdonald, but it's so like in your face comedy that like if you don't love it, like you don't like comedy. And so I had to put Phil Hartman up there because every time I watch a skit or every time I'm even a movie or a TV show or everything he did, like he's one of those people that draws you in. And he makes you appreciate his work, makes you appreciate his comedy. And I've always loved him. So I'll throw Phil Hartman in there at number two.
My number two might be a surprise because most people probably have him number one. But it's Eddie Murphy. Murphy is my number two. And I like it was him and Piscopo were the only good things when they were going right then.
Right.
We had Mr. Robertson's Neighborhood.
Mr. Robinson's Neighborhood. Love
I
it.
remember the one that I remember the most is when he pretended to be a white man and he goes through and they're like, "Oh, you don't need to pay for that." Yeah. Eddie
I mean, it's
Murphy,
hard. Yeah, Eddie Murphy's good.
he brought SNL back.
Right.
They was dead. And then him and Piscopo brought it back. But he was the star.
Right. I didn't put Eddie Murphy in my list, and it's mostly because SNL was down at that time.
Yeah, but it was because of him that they lived.
Right. Yeah, it's great. Wes, what do you got at two?
Oh, it's already been said. Norm Macdonald.
Yeah.
That's
That
awesome.
was when I started watching it again when I was a kid. Yeah.
It's just too hard to leave him off the list, I think.
I'm happy everyone has him on the list. I should have done him higher, but I knew I had to put Norm on my list because he's
Well, a lot of these guys, I haven't watched because I would only know if I watched the reruns. I
Right.
haven't watched too many reruns, so I don't remember.
Well, you gotta go out and watch the clips, right? There's tons of clips
Yeah.
that you can go out and see there, but the thing about Norm Macdonald, again, it's just it doesn't matter what he's in. Like it's funny. So, all right, here we go. Number one, SNL cast member. Derek, you're leading us off.
yep. I got It's already been said, but it's Phil Hartman.
Oh, nice.
Phil Hartman is the most versatile, most recognizable SNL person for me. I mean, Unfrozen Caveman Lawyer, uh, him as Bill Clinton.
Yes,
Uh,
Clinton's really good.
uh, that was what him with Dana Carvey when David Dana Carvey was Johnny Carson and he was Ed McMahon.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
He was Phil Donahue. He played Frankenstein. I mean, yeah, he was amazing. I mean, he was the one like he has the most sketches all time for SNL.
Wow. I didn't know that. But yeah, I mean, that's why I had him have him number two because he's great. So nothing wrong with that pick. All right, Wes, what do you got at one?
Yeah, he's the same there because the Phil Donahue one and the his Bill Clinton.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah.
I forgot for a second about the Johnny Carson until you brought that up because that is so good when he plays
Yes.
Ed Yes. It's like I think he says it like 10 times, right?
Yeah.
Well, and then here's an honorable mention for me, but him with Jan Hooks, because everyone, Jan Hooks was the original Hillary Clinton,
Yeah.
and so with him, Bill, and her as Hillary, it was awesome. And then like the one where he's Clinton and he goes into McDonald's, and he's basically doing the Andy Reid commercial where he's like, "Well, if this is," it's, and
Well,
the best. One last thing was the best was
yeah.
he's there and he's like the Secret Service guy's like. um, don't tell Hillary that we're here at McDonald's. And he's like, oh, okay. And he's like, or Hillary's not going to like that you're here. And he's like, well, Hillary's not going to know a lot of things that we do.
And she didn't. Like that's what I mean. They're not afraid to tackle like the issues, right? Like they're getting after it. Yeah, so my number one is a little cookie cutter, but it's Adam Sandler. I mean, you look at all the things he did, and sometimes it was wild and sometimes it was silly, but he really I think brought at his time a lot of the cast members together and they became really funny together as a group. And he was kind of the glue of that group. And obviously he's gone to do, great things in his career. But I mean, anytime you make $1 billion, like you did all right for yourself.
Well, and then he got fired from SNL. Him and this is what's crazy. Him and Chris Farley, they asked not to come back.
Right.
Imagine that.
Right.
Chris
I mean,
Farley and Adam Sandler. We
like
were
two
like,
of the
no, no.
best.
Yeah, we don't want you anymore.
Yeah. Well, it's I guess when you get big or you don't go with everything they tell you to do, those kind of things happen. Um, but yeah, I mean, you should remember all the different like songs he would sing and all the sketches he would do. Like he would pop up everywhere in sketches. And I've always found Adam Sandler to be not like Phil Hartman or Norm Macdonald funny, but entertaining.
Right.
So he's always been a very entertaining guy, and it's not something that you turn the channel on. Like you're not going to turn the channel on Adam Sandler. And so I've always liked him, and I got to throw him in there at number one. So that's a pretty good top five. More different than I thought, right? I thought we would have more of the same ones, but we were all a little different on those.
Except for Norm. Norm's the
Except for
only one that
Norm.
agreed with him.
Everybody's got Norm and Phil Hartman.
Yeah.
We all had Hartman as well, which I thought would be the case. To be honest with you, when I put together the list, I was like, "There's no way Derek and West don't have Phil Hartman on there."
Surprised you didn't have Dana Carvey though, Steve.
I know, I do. He was so close. I
It
actually,
wouldn't be prudent at this juncture.
yeah, not gonna do it. Wouldn't be prudent. Um, I kind of snuck Pete Davidson in there because I wanted someone a little newer.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it'd be really watch
Hmm.
this and be like, "Oh, you're ageist." And,
I mean, I would have liked to like Andy Samberg also would be
right.
a The Lonely Island.
Uh, I like Bill Hader too.
Yeah,
He's
Bill
good.
Hader is
Thought
really
about
good.
that
Yeah,
because
he's
that's
really good.
another one that I used that recently that I watched. I liked.
I also like, and I just lost her name, Tina Fey.
Yeah.
I think Tina Fey is really good, and Amy Poehler. I
Yeah.
like Amy Poehler too.
I like Kristen Wiig is really good.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, and then like we didn't even talk about Belushi.
I thought about it, but I
Well, or
for a lot of his skits.
was it Belushi and Aykroyd that did the Blues Brothers?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was so good.
That's so annoying.
Or Gilda Radner or yeah.
I mean, it's tough because it's a huge list.
Well, yeah, it's 50 years.
Right.
50 years, yeah.
I know I could guaranteed none of us would put Robert Downey Jr. on though.
Yeah.
Wes, did you even know that?
I
That
did. I did not know
Robert Downey Jr., Anthony Michael Hall, and Joan Cusack and Randy Quaid were all
Yeah.
on one season together.
that.
They said that's the worst season ever.
Which is why there was one season and nobody knows about it. But in general, now it just makes me want to go back and just watch a bunch of SNL.
Yeah.
It makes watch the special on Sunday.
Right. Well, you gotta watch that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I've been going back. I watched, there was a 3-part documentary on it, which was annoying. It was only 3 parts because one episode was just on cowbell sketch. And I was like, what? This is it? Because one was nice. It was talking about like the writers and what they go through. And it's insane. They like
Yeah.
work, like, it's like Monday, they don't get done until like 4, it's like, it's a young man's game being at SNL.
Yeah, maybe it's the same documentary, but I saw something on that too. It's like they're like sleeping, in the writers' rooms, just
Yeah, with like
constantly trying to like write and
yeah,
get
because you have
ready.
like Monday and Tuesday to get everything done and
Yeah.
figure out the sketches, and then you have to get then the writers are the one that do the wardrobe and get the sets picked out and everything. So it's kind of crazy.
But overall, like what a great show, still relevant at this time, 50 years later.
Yeah. Well, and what's crazy is watching some of the stuff. Our gen they people hated the generation of like Adam Sandler, Chris Farley, and David Spade, and like Rob Schneider and stuff. Mike Myers. I'm like, what? How could you have hated that
No,
one?
it was so good. I mean, because even like where you're talking about, like you just named like 3 or 4 guys that you could still put on the list if you wanted to, right? Especially Chris Farley.
Yeah.
Is there anybody funnier than Chris Farley at his time in SNL? It was so good. All right, well, we'll wrap it up there. End of season 6. So we'll wrap season 6 of the HSC podcast with the finish of football season, and next to come in season 7, we'll start off with usual is March Madness.
March Madness, NFL Draft, lots of top
Be
fives.
getting a ton of top fives as well. So that's where we are. Don't forget to subscribe and like. Um, Audience viewership's growing. Love to see that. Love to hear the comments, even the negative ones. I know we get
You
a
guys
little
are
bit of hate
stupid.
out there. We get a little bit of hate, but it's okay because you got to take the good with the bad. So comments are welcome. And then yeah, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast channel. Look for the shorts coming, and then you can also hear us on Spotify with the link in the YouTube channel. So appreciate everybody listening, and we'll see you next time.